Hello, I'm Nathan Rogers with Caged Chaos, brought to you by MMA Futures. Today we have an awesome guest for the show. We have Elli Grapp. Elli Grapp is a young, up and coming boxer. We look forward to chatting with her and seeing where this goes. So we're here with Elli Grapp. Elli, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm Ellie, like you said, and I am a boxer, I guess, out of Omaha now. I've kind of filtered around where I've been training from Iowa, lived in DC, lived in Texas, and kind of finally made my way back up around to the Midwest. So it's kind of nice being back where people are all so nice.
So, what kind of made you land in Omaha?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, was in Texas, and the guy I was with at the time got a job up here. So moved up here while I was pregnant, had a baby, got a job, and just recently in the past maybe 4 months now, started getting back into boxing. So it's been an uphill battle after a baby, but it's been really fun getting back around the sport.
Well, tell us a little bit about that. I mean, kind of tell us, what is kind of the struggles of being able to get back into, especially a combat sport after, obviously as a unique situation as being a female boxer, having a kid. I mean, kind of what is kind of the struggles getting back into it?
Sure. Well, I mean, yeah, it's all compounded, right, by having a kid and being a single mom now. Uh, your body changes considerably. So just getting used to kind of the new me after having a baby and getting my body back into fighting shape has obviously been a challenge. And especially when and this is true for anybody that's gotten out of shape and tried to get back into shape, but uh, when you remember what your body was capable of and trying to get back to that point is always frustrating. So I've been doing a lot of good work, getting back into shape. Have some great people surrounding me now that are helping me get there. And being a mom is part of all of that. You just have to figure out a way to drag your kid around with you to train and try to keep him happy while I'm training, which is always the trick. But uh, it's been going pretty good. He's a happy little dude, so I can't ask for a better gym partner.
So, I always find it interesting of what kind of draws people into the sport, especially the females into the sport. Obviously you've been doing this for a while. What kind of got you started in boxing and being in that combat sports realm?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of, I guess, past goes into that. So my dad was a wrestler. I always grew up. He wanted either me, my older brother, or me to kind of be into that. And when you want somebody so badly to do what you do, sometimes you push them away from that thing. So I always kind of had it in me where I wanted to kind of do some kind of combat, but I was not interested in wrestling because that was what my dad was pushing me towards, and so I kind of stayed away from it. And while I was growing up, I was a volleyball player, and went to college, kind of got out of all of that. Ended up tearing my ACL in a skiing accident. And part of me getting back in shape, I started taking some boxing classes at the gym that I was at in DC. And it was just one of those kind of boxing for fitness type classes where they're more concerned about the cardio than the actual technique in it. But the guy that was training, his name is Nino, and he was really good about his technique. And so I kind of got to learn from him. He's actually a um, background in Muay Thai and kickboxing as well as jiu-jitsu. So he was more of an MMA guy and tried to pull me into that side of things. But I guess that resistance to ground work stuck with me from the early age. So I loved boxing and that side of it. So that's really what I leaned towards. And when Nino told me, like, you seem like you actually have a talent for this and could do it, that's when I really started focusing in on that as a possibility and trying to actually treat that seriously rather than just getting back into shape. Yeah, I love it. So
How much? I mean, moving from that fitness-based boxing to that real boxing. I mean, how many people do you see making that transition? I know that I've had some friends that are have gone and done the kickboxing thing and said, I want to actually learn how to kickbox, not just do it for fitness. What kind of? I mean, how often do you see people make that transition from that fitness-based to the actual competitive-based?
yeah, I think not a lot, and a lot of people do lip service to it, right? So they want to really get into it and do it as a serious thing. They want to learn from somebody that is actually qualified um, to do it. But when push comes to shove and they spar for the first time or feel a little bit of the pain, that's when I think people start to kind of back off and realize, oh no, I just like hitting and picking on a bag, not trying to take it from somebody else. So I haven't seen it a lot. Um, some, but most people, like I said, giving it lip service.
So, being a female in combat sports, I mean, there's you have a limited competition base, but a very large audience. Is what we've learned is that finding somebody to compete against is very difficult. But you've got a huge audience out there, people that want to watch it. What does that? I mean, what does that do as far as driving you forward and wanting to compete more?
Yeah, I think I've realized it's not enough to just have the skill. You have to have people that are connected and want to invest in you as a fighter. They have to be the ones that, hey, I know so and so at this other gym. Let's get you some work over there. Because as a female, like you have to go to other gyms if you're gonna have at getting work with girls that are your size. I've always sparred the guys at the gym, kind of that are about my size, and it's great and all, but sparring guys is always going to be a little bit easier because they don't want to they don't want to bring 100% to sparring when you're a girl, and all dudes are told from I don't know 5 years old not to hit a girl. So sparring a girl is always like such harder work. But as far as the limited competition out there, I think that's finally kind of making a change, especially with some of these big names that are coming up in boxing now on the women's side that are really advocating for women's boxing as a whole, not just, uh, kind of the sideshow of, like the first wave of women boxing where Layla Ali, like that was a huge draw because that was Muhammad Ali's daughter. But it was more about Layla Ali than it was about women's boxing. So we're seeing people like Clarissa Shields, like Michaela Mayer now that are bringing a lot of attention to it as a like valid sport rather than just
So, obviously, I do a lot of MMA, so I definitely understand the way that works a lot better. Especially when you're coming up in boxing. I mean, how does that process work? Kind of, where do you start? I know you start doing smokers and stuff like that, but kind of how does that process work as far as getting to a level where you're, in a stronger competition and going pro and things along those lines?
So, and I'm still completely in this like beginning stage too. So, trying to get smokers, trying to get some of my first amateur fights and stuff. But in boxing in general, you want to have as much experience as possible as you can in the amateur division before you go pro, because your amateur record, you don't have to carry with you into the pros, but it's kind of what sets you up for success. People know what you did in the amateurs or whatever, and so that can kind of push you further when you first turn pro. But as a amateur boxer, you also get to have the fights where you make mistakes and learn. So you see some people that you can turn pro whenever. You can turn pro after your bad fights or whatever, but it's a stupid idea if you have a chance to learn more in the amateurs. Now it's also obviously, I'm sure you've heard too, like amateurs versus pros is like a completely different approach. So the way that you score in the amateurs, like you're interested in scoring, getting out, just getting as many points as you can. Whereas in the pros, you're really trying to get in there, work the angles. You're not doing as much of the getting back out of the situation. You want to see if you can finish the fight. It's a lot harder to knock anybody out when you're all working with headgear.
So, how much competition have you actually done? Have you actually had a few matches, or still kind of looking at getting back into shape and get into it?
Yep. So that's the stage I'm at right now. I mean, I've sparred tons, especially down in Texas. When I was down there, I had a lot of amazing sparring experience. But now it's about trying to find smokers, trying to find tournaments that are big enough to where maybe there's another woman there. I had a few tournaments that I was supposed to be in down in Texas, but either they fell through for whatever reason. Um, our coach wasn't like the most organized in figuring out, the logistics around getting the team to the fights. So it was just, I had an amazing learning experience down there, but it wasn't a good spot for me to develop as a female boxer.
Awesome. So, where do you train at? I mean, do you train at a strictly boxing gym? Do you train at an MMA gym? Where do you train at, and kind of how does somebody get into that?
Yeah. So right now, so after I'd met Houston here in Omaha, he set me up with Victory Boxing Club. So that's where I've been, like Monday through Thursday. Obviously, with coronavirus stuff, it's taken a hit, but I've still been getting some work in and conditioning. I condition with Houston too a few times a week. So probably I would say Monday through Friday, I train about at least 5 times, probably 7. Um, so I'll have a couple days where I do 2 a days, basically.
Okay. Um, Talk about a little bit about what you feel to be some of the unique struggles as far as being a female combat sports person. What are those kind of those unique struggles that you have?
Yeah, so we talked about a couple, not being able to find people to spar and fight is a huge one, and you have to have people around you that either are willing to help you travel to fight, or have amazing connections in the area for you to at least get experience with other gyms. Um, but on top of that, I mean, I don't know, as a woman in general, you always have to kind of wonder about people's motivations for helping you out. So over the years, I guess I've had people that, say they're interested in helping me out, or more interested in maybe going on a date or something. So you gotta just hold everybody until they kind of prove that they're in it for your best interests. And then just biggest challenge I really think is, as a woman at a gym, if you're on a team and you're all trying to fight in the amateurs, you're one of maybe 2 women that are really interested in fighting. At least that was the case at the gym I was at in Texas. So when there are then 20 other dudes on the team, uh, the gym is going to prioritize 20 people fights versus 2. So it's really just, you have to be able to advocate for yourself. Um, Boxing is definitely still a boys' club where women are kind of told, be grateful for your seat at the table. And you have to fight for yourself and prioritize your growth. You have to ask for what you need. But and you have so much more to prove, right? Everybody, when you come into a boxing gym, expect to kind of bow out when things get hard. So I always had a rule with myself, training with the guys, like I'm not gonna give up until at least three other dudes give up, and then I'll give myself permission to bow out if I have to. But I feel like as a woman, you just have so much more to prove when it's such a male dominated sport. So I pushed myself so hard, especially in Texas, and now I'm kind of learning, trying to listen to my body, give it that like slow, gradual climb that it needs. Even though like I definitely get frustrated and want to just push, 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 but you gotta listen to your body and make sure you're doing it smart. So those are some of the challenges. I mean, definitely there's more, and definitely I'm finding out more as a single mom being in it now. So it's always going to be something. But whether you're a woman in this sport or you're a dude in it, like you're always going to have your own challenges, and you can't use those as excuses to not put your all into it. So that's where I'm at.
So, as a female fighter, I mean, obviously, there's not a lot of people out there to like look up to and say, I this is my hero, this is what I want to do. You don't, as a female, you don't have the Mike Tysons and that stuff to say, hey, I want to be like Mike Tyson. Layla Ali obviously kind of opened the door for females in boxing, but do you have anybody in particular that you look up to that you kind of like, you know what, this person did it, so now I feel like I actually can do this?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm at a really cool point in women's boxing. Like, I really feel like the tide is turning. 2012 was the first time women's boxing was in the Olympics. Granted, they've only got three weight divisions, but um, it's turning to where people are taking it seriously now, and there's a lot of talent out there. It's just whether or not they're being promoted right. So, like a great example, Katie Taylor is amazing, and she's got great promoters behind her. So she's doing the best right now as far as pay in women's boxing. But we've got awesome other people too. Clarissa Shields, obviously, super talented, fastest boxer ever, male or female, to get three division world titles in three different weight divisions. Michaela Mayer is somebody that I really like as far as her style, and kind of look up to and follow that way. Heather Hardy, and there are a couple of these boxers that are transitioning over into MMA too. So there's just a lot of amazing female talent, and I think even more to be able to look up to in women's boxing, because these are girls that this is what they love to do. They are doing it for the money, but they're not doing it for the same money that guys are able to do it for. So you gotta love it to some degree to stick with it.
Right on. Well, we really do look forward to seeing you get in there and get into make your debut and get some boxing in there. We'll definitely be keeping in touch and watching what happens. So thank you for joining us today. This is Elli Grapp, and we'll kind of keep everybody updated on what happens with her.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. So appreciate it.